The ballroom smelled like roses and expensive perfume. Gold balloons floated near the ceiling. A slideshow of my parents' 50 years together played softly on a projector screen. I stood at the entrance holding a box wrapped in gold paper, ribbon tied carefully at the top. I had flown 2,000 miles with it balanced in my carry-on, protecting it from creases like it was fragile glass. When my mother saw me, her smile didn't widen. It tightened. Before I could sit down, she leaned close and said, "We didn't invite you. Your sister planned this." My father glanced at the box in my hands. Then he pushed it off the table. "We don't want any worthless thing from you." The sound of it hitting the floor was louder than the music. I bent down, picked it up, and walked out without saying a word. I kept walking until the cool air outside hit my face. The venue doors closed behind me with a soft, expensive hush, like the building itself was trained not to make a scene. Inside, the music kept playing. Laughter kept moving. My absence would be explained away in minutes. I stood under the awning with my gold-wrapped box pressed to my chest and watched cars glide past the entrance. Headlights streaked across wet pavement. My hands weren't shaking. That was the strange part. I'd imagined this moment so many different ways over the years. If my parents ever embarrassed me again, I told myself I would finally say everything I'd kept inside. But when it happened, I didn't feel anger first. I felt recognition. Have you ever been hurt by something and also not surprised at all? I didn't go back in. I didn't call anyone. I didn't even cry right away. Instead, I walked to my hotel 2 blocks away, the gift still in my arms like proof I hadn't dreamed it. In the elevator, I caught my reflection in the mirrored wall. My hair was neat. My makeup still intact. My posture straight. I looked like someone attending a celebration, not someone being removed from one. Back in my room, I set the box on the bed and sat beside it. The gold paper shimmered under the lamp. Perfect corners. Clean ribbon. My phone lit up with messages. My sister, Talia, why would you show up? You always do this. My mother, this day is not about you. My father, don't cause drama. Leave it alone. Leave it alone. That phrase had been the soundtrack of my childhood. When I was 14 and Talia borrowed my dress and ripped the zipper, my mother said, "It's just a dress. Leave it alone." When I got a scholarship and Talia didn't, my father said, "Don't rub it in. Leave it alone." When Talia announced her engagement 2 months after my divorce, and my parents hosted her a party with a 3-tier cake, my mother told me, "Smile. Leave it alone. Convenience over fairness." Every time. Because it was easier for them if I stayed small. I looked down at the gold paper again and thought about the distance I had traveled. 2 flights. A layover. A rental car. I'd rehearsed my smile in the airplane bathroom mirror. I'd told myself this gift could be the bridge. Not because I needed their approval. Because some part of me still hoped they would finally see me. I reached into my purse and pulled out the small envelope I'd tucked under the ribbon. The card inside was simple. Happy 50th. I hope this brings you peace. Peace. The word tasted almost bitter. Then my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. I answered, thinking maybe it was the hotel. But it was the venue coordinator. "Hi," she said softly. "I just wanted to confirm, did you leave an item at table 12? A guest mentioned a gold-wrapped gift on the floor." I stared at the box in front of me. "Yes," I said. "I took it." Another pause. "I'm sorry," she said carefully. I saw what happened. I didn't respond. Because suddenly, I realized something. Someone had witnessed it. And that meant the story wouldn't stay contained the way my family liked it. The venue coordinator's voice stayed gentle. "I've worked events for years," she said. That wasn't normal. Not normal. I almost laughed at that. For her, it was shocking. For me, it was familiar. "Thank you," I replied quietly. "It's fine." But it wasn't fine. It was just expected. After I hung up, I finally let myself sit still. The hotel room was too quiet. The air conditioner hummed softly. Somewhere down the hallway, a door shut. I placed the gift back in my suitcase, careful not to wrinkle the paper. I wasn't ready to open it. Not yet. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was my aunt. "I don't know what happened," she said immediately, her voice hushed. "But your dad shouldn't have done that." Shouldn't have. That phrasing again. As if it were an accident. A social misstep. "It's okay," I said. "You flew all this way," she continued. "Your sister told us you weren't coming." There it was. The quiet revision. "She said you didn't want to attend because it was Talia's event," my aunt added. Talia's event. I closed my eyes. Early warning signs had always been there. 2 months ago, when the invitations were mailed, I never received one. When I asked my mom casually about dates, she said, "Oh, Talia's handling all of that. I'm sure she'll reach out." She never did. Last week, when I texted my sister, "Can't wait to celebrate Mom and Dad," she replied with a vague thumbs-up emoji. I told myself it was oversight. Busy planning. Stress. Have you ever convinced yourself that exclusion was just forgetfulness? The pattern was clearer now. Talia had always curated the narrative. When I moved across the country for work, she told relatives I needed space. When my marriage ended, she explained to everyone that I was emotionally distant. When I skipped one holiday after my divorce because I couldn't afford the ticket, she told my parents I was prioritizing my career. She positioned me as absent. And then filled the space. It was subtle. Strategic. Comfortable for my parents because it required no confrontation. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed and replayed the moment my father pushed the gift off the table. He hadn't asked what it was. He had dismissed it before knowing. Because in their version of me, my contributions were always secondary. My aunt's voice softened on the phone. "Your mother is upset now," she said. Guests noticed. Not upset about hurting me. Upset about being noticed. People asked questions, my aunt continued. Of course they did. Because public humiliation is harder to control than private silence. I thanked her and ended the call. Then I did something I hadn't planned to do. I untied the ribbon. Slowly. Carefully. The gold paper peeled back without tearing. Inside the box was a framed document. And underneath it, a smaller envelope. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. Because once they found out what was inside, I knew things would shift. I opened the envelope first. Inside was a single sheet of paper with my handwriting at the top. Property transfer confirmation. Beneath it was the official copy. 2 months earlier, I had finalized the purchase of the small lake house my parents used to rent every summer when we were kids. The place with the creaking dock and the faded blue shutters. The place my father always said he wished he could have bought but never could. I had bought it quietly. Paid in full. And I had transferred it into their names. No loan. No conditions. Just a gift. The framed document in the box was the deed, already processed and recorded. 50 years of marriage. I thought giving them the place where they felt happiest might finally feel like something solid. Something undeniable. I ran my fingers along the edge of the frame. Worthless. That word echoed in my head. Have you ever realized someone dismissed your effort before knowing its weight? The smaller envelope held the keys. 3 of them, tied together with a thin navy ribbon. I pictured the moment in the ballroom again. My father's hand pushing the box away. The soft thud on carpet. If I had opened it right there. No. It wouldn't have changed the gesture. Because the pattern was bigger than the gift. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was my cousin. Is it true? She asked immediately. Is what true? I replied. That you bought them the lake house. I went still. How do you know that? Talia just found out, she said. Mom overheard the venue coordinator talking to Aunt Linda. Someone mentioned you said it was a property document. Dad's asking questions. Of course he was. He hadn't wanted to know what was inside. Now he needed to. Because the narrative was slipping. I imagined the moment unfolding in that ballroom. My sister realizing what she had helped reject. My parents recalculating. Not out of guilt. Out of embarrassment. 13 hours was the drive from their city to mine. I knew that distance well. Have you ever watched people move quickly when value becomes visible? My phone rang again. This time, it was my father. I stared at the screen. And for the first time in my life, I let it ring without answering. I didn't answer his first call. Or the second. Or the third. Instead, I packed my suitcase carefully, sliding the framed deed back into its protective wrap. The hotel carpet was soft under my bare feet. The room smelled faintly of detergent and leftover roses from the lobby. My phone vibrated again. A text this time. Dad, call me immediately. Immediately. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the message. For years, that tone would have triggered something automatic in me. A reflex to respond. To smooth things over. To reassure. But something had shifted. Have you ever noticed how distance changes urgency? Another message followed. Dad, is it true? About the house? No apology. No acknowledgement of what happened. Just confirmation. I typed slowly. Yes. Then I placed the phone face down. A few minutes later, my mother called. I let it ring once before answering. Her voice sounded different. Not sharp. Not dismissive. Tight. Why didn't you say anything? She asked. I leaned back against the headboard. I tried, I said calmly. You didn't want the gift. A pause. We didn't know, she insisted. I know, I replied. That silence stretched longer. You embarrassed us, she said softly. I almost laughed. I embarrassed you? There was no heat in my voice. Just clarity. You pushed it off the table, I continued. In front of your guests. She inhaled sharply, as if hearing the scene from outside herself for the first time. Talia said you weren't coming, she murmured. There it was again. The deflection. I closed my eyes. For once, I said quietly, this isn't about Talia. Another pause. Your father wants to talk, she said. I'm sure he does. She hesitated. Can we come see you? The question landed heavier than anything else. Not can we fix this? Not we're sorry. Can we come see you? Because now there was something tangible at stake. I thought about the lake house. The dock. The way my father used to sit there at sunrise with coffee in his hand. The way my mother collected smooth stones along the shore. I had bought it for that version of them. Not the one in the ballroom. Have you ever realized you were chasing a memory, not a reality? Yes, I said finally. You can come. We'll leave tonight, my father's voice cut in, now on speaker. It's a 13-hour drive. 13 hours. The same distance I had traveled for them. I hung up and looked around the hotel room. The gold wrapping paper lay folded neatly on the desk. For the first time, I didn't feel like the overlooked daughter. I felt like the one holding the decision. And I wasn't sure yet what I was going to do with it. They arrived at my apartment building just after sunrise. 13 hours on the road. I could see it in their posture when they stepped out of the car. My father's shoulders slightly hunched. My mother's hair pulled back in a loose knot, not the polished style she wore to the anniversary. They didn't look grand. They looked tired. I opened the door before they rang the bell. For a moment, none of us spoke. The hallway smelled faintly of coffee from a neighbor's kitchen. Morning light filtered through the small window behind them. My father was the first to break the silence. "Why would you do that?" he asked. Not angry. Genuinely confused. "Do what?" I replied. "Buy the house," he said. "After everything." "After everything." I folded my arms loosely, not defensively. "Just steady." "Because it was your 50th, I said. And I thought it mattered." My mother's eyes flicked toward the framed document resting on my dining table inside the apartment. "You should have told us what it was," she said quietly. "I tried to give it to you," I answered. The memory of the box sliding off the table hovered between us. My father looked down. "We didn't mean it like that," he muttered. "How did you mean it, then?" I didn't say the question out loud. Instead, I stepped aside and let them in. They walked slowly into my living room, looking around as if it were the first time they'd really seen my space. The framed photos on the wall. The bookshelf near the window. The small plant by the couch. My mother stopped in front of a picture of me at my graduation ceremony years ago. "I didn't know you kept this one," she said softly. "I keep most things," I replied. My father picked up the deed from the table. His fingers traced the edge of the frame carefully, like it might disappear. "You put it in our names," he said. "Yes." "No conditions?" "No." He swallowed. Have you ever watched someone realize generosity doesn't come with strings? My mother finally sat down on the couch. "We were wrong," she said. The word sounded unfamiliar coming from her. Not dramatic. Not weepy. Just stated. "I shouldn't have said you weren't invited," she added. "Talia told us you declined." "I never declined," I said evenly. My father sighed. "We didn't check," he admitted. That was it. They didn't check. Because it was easier to believe the version that required less effort. Silence settled over the room. No raised voices. No scene. Just the weight of something acknowledged too late. My father placed the deed back on the table. "We drove all night because we thought you'd changed your mind," he said. "That you might take it back." I shook my head. "I don't give gifts to control people," I replied. Another long pause. For the first time, I saw something shift in them. Not fear of losing the house. Fear of losing access to me. We sat in silence for a while. The kind of silence that doesn't demand filling. My mother folded her hands in her lap. My father stared at the framed deed as if it carried more than property lines. "I didn't know you were flying in," my mother said finally. "Talia told us you were too busy." I nodded slowly. "And you didn't think to ask me directly?" She hesitated. No answer came. Have you ever realized how often silence hides behind convenience? My father cleared his throat. "We've relied on her to handle things," he admitted. "She lives closer. It's easier." Easier. There it was again. The same word that had shaped so many of our years. Easier to believe I didn't want to attend. Easier to assume I wouldn't mind. Easier to push a box away than ask what was inside. I looked at both of them. "I'm not asking for the house back," I said. "It's yours." My mother's eyes widened slightly. "You're not?" "No." Another long pause. "Then what do you want?" my father asked quietly. The question felt unfamiliar. What do I want? Not approval. Not repayment. Not a dramatic apology. "I want you to check," I said. "Before you assume. Before you accept someone else's version of me." My voice stayed calm. I want you to ask me directly if I'm coming. If I'm okay. If I'm part of the plan. My mother's eyes grew glassy, but she didn't cry. We didn't realize, she whispered. I know, I replied. That was the truth. They hadn't realized because they hadn't looked. For years, I had chased their attention with achievements. With effort. With quiet forgiveness. Now I wasn't chasing. I was standing still. Have you ever felt the difference between begging to be seen and simply refusing to shrink? My father leaned back in his chair. We drove 13 hours thinking you might take it away, he said. I won't, I answered. Because this wasn't about the lake house. It was about distance. And distance can't be solved with property. It can only be solved with presence. They stayed for coffee. No dramatic reconciliation. No sudden transformation. Just conversation. When they left, my mother paused at the door. We'll do better, she said. I nodded. I didn't promise anything back. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to. After they left, the apartment felt larger. Quieter. I stood by the window and watched their car disappear down the street. No dramatic wave. No emotional goodbye. Just two figures who finally understood something they had ignored for years. My phone buzzed later that afternoon. A message from my father. Thank you. Not just for the house. It was the first time he had said thank you without attaching a condition to it. That evening, my sister called. Her voice sounded different. Not defensive. Not sharp. Why didn't you tell me? She asked. I tried, I said calmly. Silence. I didn't know about the house, she admitted. I believed her. Because for the first time, she didn't sound like she was managing a narrative. She sounded unsettled. I thought you didn't care, she added quietly. There it was. The misunderstanding that had fueled everything. I care, I replied. I just don't compete. Another pause. I didn't mean for it to go that far, she said. But it had. And the difference now was that I wasn't scrambling to smooth it over. Have you ever noticed how people adjust when they realize you won't chase them anymore? The lake house keys were delivered a week later. I received a photo from my mother of the dock at sunrise. My father sitting at the edge with a cup of coffee, just like when I was a child. This time, the caption read, "Wish you were here." No guilt. No pressure. Just invitation. For years, I believed love meant proving your worth. Flying across states. Wrapping gifts in gold paper. Hoping effort would equal acceptance. But standing in that ballroom, watching my present hit the floor, something finally shifted. I picked it up. And I left. Not in anger. In clarity. When they drove 13 hours to my door, it wasn't because they suddenly valued the house. It was because they realized they might lose me. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of that. If this story resonated with you, share your thoughts below. Like this video if you've ever chosen dignity over reaction. This wasn't the end of my family story. It was the beginning of being seen without begging.